Imagine losing your career, your reputation, and your last paycheck in a single hour. Now imagine walking home in the freezing rain, thinking it can't get any worse, until the streetlights flicker out. Behind you, the distinct, terrifying roar of $5 million worth of Italian horsepower cuts through the storm. You aren't being mugged, you're being hunted. When 5 Mafia Supercars box you in and the window rolls down, they don't ask for your wallet. They ask for your skills. This is the story of Bella Jenkins, the nurse who was fired for being right, and Dante Moretti, the don who would burn the world down to keep her wrong. Welcome to the night everything changed. The fluorescent lights of Mercy West Hospital in Chicago usually hummed with a frequency that comforted Bella Jenkins. It was the sound of consistency, of order. But tonight, inside the glass-walled office of Chief Administrator Richard Sterling, the hum sounded like a dying fly trapped in a jar. Insubordination, Bella. Gross misconduct. Sterling didn't look at her. He was busy adjusting the cuffs of his Brooks Brothers shirt, staring out at the rainy gloom of Wacker Drive. He was a small man who took up too much space, his desk cluttered with awards that Bella knew he hadn't earned. I didn't realize saving a patient's life was misconduct, Bella said, her voice shaking not with fear, but with a rage she was struggling to cap. She gripped the strap of her tote bag until her knuckles turned ivory. Dr. Callahan wrote the wrong dosage. He prescribed 10,000 units of heparin instead of 1,000 for a post-op patient with a history of hemorrhaging. If I had administered that, Mr. Kowalski would have bled out before his wife got back from the vending machine. Sterling finally turned. His eyes were cold, dead things behind rimless glasses. Dr. Callahan is a board member and a donor. You are a floor nurse on a probationary contract. You publicly corrected a senior surgeon in front of his residence. You humiliated him. I corrected him because he was holding the syringe. And now you're holding a pink slip. Sterling slid a manila envelope across the mahogany desk. It looked thin, pathetic. Security will escort you out. Don't make a scene, Miss Jenkins. It's a small industry. You don't want to be blacklisted in Milwaukee and Detroit, too. Bella felt the floor tilt. It wasn't just the job. It was the rent on her studio apartment in Logan Square. It was the student loans that ate 60% of her paycheck. It was the fact that she had skipped lunch today to save $6, and now she had $0 coming in next week. You're firing me for patient safety, she whispered. We are letting you go for creating a hostile work environment, Sterling corrected, checking his Rolex. Please leave your badge on the desk. 10 minutes later, Bella was standing on the sidewalk of Michigan Avenue. The Chicago autumn had turned cruel. The rain was a sheet of icy needles, driven sideways by the wind coming off the lake. She clutched a cardboard box containing a stethoscope, a spare pair of scrubs, a mug that said, "Nurses call the shots," and a dying succulent. She checked her phone. 11:42 p.m. The battery was at 4%. Uber was surging to $65 because of the storm. Her bank account balance, which she knew by heart, was $42.18. She began to walk. The city felt hostile tonight. The skyscrapers were like iron bars of a cell, the clouds choking out the moonlight. She walked fast, head down, the cardboard box dissolving in her wet hands. She cut through the alleyways near the theater district to save time, a route she took often, but tonight the shadows seemed longer, thicker. She wiped rain from her eyes, her mascara running in dark streaks. I am 26 years old, she thought. I graduated top of my class, and I am walking home in the rain with a cactus and no future. She didn't hear the cars at first. The wind was howling too loud. She felt them. It was a vibration in the pavement, a low-frequency tremor that traveled up through the soles of her cheap sneakers. It wasn't the rattle of a passing bus. It was the deep, guttural growl of precision engineering. She stopped at the corner of State Street and Lake, waiting for the light. The street was empty, desolate. Then the light turned red, and the world exploded with light. It happened with military precision. Bella shielded her eyes as high-intensity LED beams cut through the rain, blinding her. One set of headlights, then two, then five. They came from nowhere, swinging out of the cross street and the opposing lane, ignoring traffic laws, ignoring physics. They weren't police cars. They were low, wide, and terrifyingly expensive. A matte black Lamborghini Urus swerved in front of her, mounting the curb and blocking her path. The tires screeched on the wet concrete, stopping inches from her knees. Before she could turn to run, a Ferrari Puro Sang screamed up behind her, boxing her in. 3 sedans, Mercedes S-Class, all blacked out, completed the circle, sealing off the intersection. Bella dropped her box. The mug shattered. The succulent rolled into the gutter. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in her chest. This wasn't a robbery. Robbers didn't drive $3 million in inventory. This was a hit. Did Sterling send someone? No, he's a bureaucrat, not a warlord. The back door of the lead Mercedes flew open. A man stepped out. He was huge, easily 6'4", built like a refrigerator wrapped in a soaking wet Brioni suit. He didn't look like a thug. He looked like a soldier. He had an earpiece and a scar running through his left eyebrow. He didn't draw a weapon. He simply pointed at her. "Identify," he barked over the rain. Bella backed up, hitting the warm hood of the Lamborghini. "I don't have anything. Take my purse." "We don't want your money," the giant growled, closing the distance in 2 strides. He grabbed her arm. His grip was like a blood pressure cuff, pumped to the max. He dragged her towards the middle of the circle of cars. "Are you the trauma nurse? Jenkins?" Bella froze. "How do you— Yes or no?" "Yes, I'm a nurse." The giant tapped his earpiece. "Target acquired. She's civilian, but she's the one from the file. We're moving." "Wait," Bella screamed, struggling. "I was just fired. I'm not even employed anymore." The rear window of the Lamborghini rolled down 3 inches. A voice floated out. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the storm instantly. It was a baritone, smooth, dark, and laced with an accent that wasn't quite American, not quite Italian. It sounded like old money and violence. "I don't care about your employment status, Miss Jenkins," the voice said. "I care about your hands. Are they steady?" Bella stopped struggling, staring at the sliver of darkness in the window. "Who are you?" "Get in the car," the voice ordered, "or stay here and explain to the police why you were seen leaving the scene of a high-profile shooting in 10 minutes. "I didn't shoot anyone." "Not yet," the voice said. "But if you don't get in this car, a very important man is going to die. And if he dies, the city burns. And if the city burns, the fire starts with you." The giant opened the back door of the Lamborghini. The interior was cream leather, smelling of cigar smoke and copper, the smell of blood. Bella looked at the empty street. She looked at the giant. She looked at the dark interior of the car. Her triage brain kicked in. Fight or flight is useless here. This is negotiate or die. She ducked her head and climbed into the lion's den. The door slammed shut, sealing out the noise of the rain. The silence inside the SUV was sudden and heavy. Bella was pressed against the door, clutching her wet tote bag to her chest like a shield. Beside her sat a man who looked like he had been carved out of marble and nightmares. Dante Moretti. She recognized him instantly. Not from the hospital, but from the whispers in the break room, the blurry photos on the news that usually accompanied headlines about sanitation union disputes or port authority corruption. The head of the Moretti crime family, the Capo Dei Capi of Chicago. He was younger than she expected, maybe 32. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than her student loans. His hair was dark, slicked back from a face that was devastatingly handsome in a severe, predatory way. High cheekbones, a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and eyes the color of espresso. Dark, bitter, and intense. But Bella's eyes didn't stay on his face. They traveled down to his hands. They were covered in blood. And across his lap lay another man. He was younger, paler, sweating profusely. His breathing was shallow and ragged. A tuxedo shirt was torn open, revealing a jagged, oozing hole just below the rib cage on the left side. "He's crashing," Bella said, the nurse in her overriding the hostage in her. She dropped her bag and lunged forward, ignoring Dante's flinch. "Don't touch him unless you can fix him," Dante warned. His voice was low, dangerous. He had a gun resting on the center console, a suppressed Sig Sauer. "Shut up," Bella snapped. She pressed her fingers to the younger man's neck. "Pulse is thready, tachycardic. He's in hypovolemic shock. How long ago was he shot?" Dante looked at her, surprised by her tone. 12 minutes, 9 millimeters. "Exit wound?" "No. So the bullet is still inside, likely nicking the spleen or the diaphragm, maybe the stomach." Bella looked around the luxury car. "I need pressure. Give me your tie." "My tie? Give me your damn tie," she screamed. Dante unknotted his silk tie and handed it to her. Bella folded it into a pad and pressed it hard into the wound. The boy groaned, his eyes fluttering. "Leo, stay with me," Dante said, his voice cracking for a fraction of a second. He leaned in, his forehead touching his brother's sweat-slicked hair. "You hear me? You don't get to quit." "Driver!" Bella yelled at the front. "How far?" 4 minutes to the spire, the driver replied. "He doesn't have 4 minutes," Bella said, looking at the blood soaking through the silk tie. "He's drowning internally. Why didn't you go to Mercy? We were 3 blocks away." Dante looked at her, his eyes hardening into flint. "Because the man who shot him is currently sitting in the waiting room of Mercy West, surrounded by police, claiming self-defense. If we go there, Leo is arrested, or finished off." "So you kidnapped me?" "You were the best," Dante said. "I have a source in HR. They said you were the best trauma nurse on the floor, the one who caught the mistakes the doctors missed. I was fired for that." "Exactly," Dante said. "That means you have integrity, or you're arrogant. I can work with either." The car swerved violently, taking a corner at 60 miles per hour. Bella fell against Dante. His arm shot out to steady her, his grip iron hard. For a second, she smelled his cologne, sandalwood and gunpowder. "We are going to my penthouse," Dante said, releasing her. "I have a medical suite, fully stocked. You are going to operate." Bella's eyes went wide. "I am a nurse, Mr. Moretti. Not a surgeon. I can't operate. I can stabilize, I can suture, but I cannot go digging for a bullet in her abdominal cavity without a surgeon." "Then you better learn fast," Dante said, wiping a smear of his brother's blood from his hand onto a handkerchief, "because no one else is coming. If I mess up, he dies." Dante turned to her. The look in his eyes wasn't a threat. It was a promise of mutual destruction. "Bella," he said, using her name for the first time. It sounded intimate and terrifying. "If he dies, you will wish you had never walked out of that hospital." The car screeched to a halt. The doors flew open. "Move!" Dante roared. Bella scrambled out into a private underground garage. Security teams were already swarming. They lifted Leo onto a gurney. Bella ran alongside the gurney as they sprinted toward a private elevator. Her mind was racing. Anatomy, left upper quadrant, spleen, splenic artery, clamp, suture. She had watched 100 surgeries. She had assisted in 1,000, but she had never held the scalpel. The elevator doors closed, rocketing them upward towards the penthouse of the Chicago spire. Dante stood in the corner of the elevator watching her. He looked like a cornered wolf. "Do you have O-negative blood?" Bella asked, her voice trembling but loud. "Yes, 4 bags in the fridge," Dante said. "Do you have general anesthesia? Propofol?" "Yes." "Do you have a prayer book?" Bella muttered under her breath. "I have you," Dante said. The doors pinged open. They burst into a living room that was all glass and white marble, overlooking the stormy city. But they bypassed the luxury, heading straight for a room behind a hidden panel in the library. It was a sterile room. Surgical lights, a vent, an OR table. "Scrub in," Dante ordered, ripping his jacket off and throwing it on the floor. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing tattoos that ran up his forearms, Latin phrases and geometric lines. "I'll assist." "You?" Bella scoffed, grabbing a gown. "You'll faint." "I've cut up more meat than you have, Nurse Jenkins," Dante said grimly, washing his hands in the sink next to her. "Just tell me where to cut." Bella looked at him. He was terrified for his brother. She could see it in the tightness of his eyes. But he was controlled. She took a deep breath. She was wet, cold, fired, and about to perform illegal surgery on a Mafia Don's brother, with the Don acting as her scrub tech. "Okay," Bella said, snapping on latex gloves. "Hook him up to the monitor. Cut the shirt. Give me the scalpel." Dante handed her the #10 blade. Their fingers brushed. A spark of electricity, hot and wrong, shot up her arm. "Don't let him die," Dante whispered. Bella looked down at the bleeding boy. "Scalpel," she repeated. She made the incision. The room smelled of antiseptic and iron. The hum of the cardiac monitor was the only metronome in a world that had otherwise spiraled into chaos. "Suction," Bella commanded. Her voice sounded foreign to her ears, steely, detached. It was the code blue voice she used when a patient flatlined, a persona she slipped into to keep the panic at bay. Dante moved with surprising grace for a man of his size. He held the suction wand, clearing the field of view as red pooled in the abdominal cavity. He didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He stared into the open wound of his brother with a terrifying intensity, as if he could will the bleeding to stop by sheer force of personality. "I can't see the source," Bella muttered, sweat stinging her eyes. "There's too much blood. Retract that. Harder." Dante pulled the metal retractor back. "Here? More. I need to see the spleen." Bella's hands were slick inside the sterile gloves. She reached in, her fingers exploring the warm, wet trauma of the human body. She felt the pulse of the aorta, bounding and thready. She moved past the stomach, sliding her hand behind the spleen. "Found it," she hissed. "The bullet tore the splenic artery. It's a jagged tear. I can't suture this quickly enough. He's going to bleed out before I can throw a stitch. Do something," Dante growled, the calm cracking in his voice. The monitor began to beep faster, a high-pitched warning. Beep, beep, beep. "BP is dropping. 70/40, Bella read out. "I have to clamp it. Hand me the curved hemostats. No, the ones with the curved tip." Dante fumbled for a split second, the first sign of human error he had shown, before slapping the metal instrument into her palm. Bella went in blind. She couldn't see the artery through the pooling blood. She had to feel the jet of fluid against her fingertips. She visualized the anatomy charts she had memorized in nursing school, the diagrams she had stared at until her eyes burned. Anatomy is a map, she told herself. Just follow the map. She pinched the vessel. The hemostat clicked shut. 1 click, 2 clicks, 3. The monitor's frantic rhythm slowed. The pooling blood in the cavity stopped rising. "I got it," she breathed, her knees almost buckling. "I clamped the bleeder." Dante let out a breath that sounded like a steam valve releasing pressure. "Is he safe?" "No," Bella said, adrenaline coursing through her veins like ice water. "Clamping just buys us time. I have to tie it off. And since the spleen is shredded, I have to remove it. I have to perform a splenectomy." Dante looked at her across the table. Under the harsh surgical lights, he looked demonic. Blood splattered on his white dress shirt, his eyes dark pits. "You said you weren't a surgeon." "I lied," she whispered, grabbing a fresh scalpel. "Or maybe I'm just desperate. Keep retracting. Don't you dare move." The next hour was a blur of focus. Bella worked with a precision she didn't know she possessed. She dissected the ligaments, ligated the vessels, and removed the damaged organ. Every time her hand trembled, she looked up and saw Dante watching her. He wasn't watching her like a captive. He was watching her like a miracle. "Suture," she requested. "Which one?" 3-0 silk. I need to tie the pedicle." Dante handed it to her. As she went to tie the knot, the surgeon's knot, a complex loop she had practiced on shoelaces for years just for fun, Her hands began to shake violently. The adrenaline crash was hitting her. The sugar crash from skipping lunch, the sheer terror of the situation. She couldn't thread the needle. The tip wavered in the air. "Bella," Dante said softly. "I can't," she gasped, panic rising in her throat. "I'm shaking. I can't stabilize." Dante reached out. He didn't take the instrument. Instead, he wrapped his large, blood-stained hand around hers. His skin was hot. His grip was firm, grounding her. "Look at me," he commanded. She looked up. His eyes locked onto hers, stripping away the fear. "You already saved him," Dante said. "This is just sewing. You're fixing a hem. Just a hem, Bella." His belief in her was intoxicating. It was a physical weight. She took a deep breath, borrowing his strength. "Okay," she whispered. "Just a hem." He released her hand. She threw the knot. Perfect. Tight. Secure. 20 minutes later, the skin was closed with a line of neat staples. Bella cleaned the area, applied the dressing, and stepped back. She stripped off her bloody gloves and let them drop to the floor. "He's stable," she said, her voice hollow. "Vital signs are strong. He's going to make it." The silence that followed was deafening. Dante walked around the table. He stood inches from her. She was covered in his brother's blood. Her hair had escaped its bun and hung in messy strands around her face. She felt disgusting, exhausted, and small. Dante reached out. She flinched, expecting a strike. Instead, his thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away a smear of blood that wasn't hers. The touch was electric, sending a jolt straight to her core. "You are a surgeon," Dante said, his voice low and rough. "Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." "I'm a nurse who just committed a felony," Bella replied, her legs finally giving out. She slumped forward. Dante caught her before she hit the floor. He lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing, carrying her out of the sterile white room and back into the dark, expensive world of the penthouse. "Sleep, Bella," he murmured against her hair. "I'll watch the door." That was the last thing she heard before the darkness took her. Bella woke up to the smell of espresso and the sound of rain still hammering the city. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, thread count in the thousands, cool and silky against her skin. The room was vast, decorated in shades of slate and charcoal. A wall of floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the Chicago skyline, shrouded in grey mist. Memory slammed into her, like a physical blow. The firing, the walk, the cars, the gun, the surgery. She sat up, gasping, checking her hands. They were clean. Someone had wiped them while she slept. She looked down. She was wearing a t-shirt that was far too big for her, a black t-shirt that smelled of sandalwood. Her wet scrubs were gone. Panic surged again. She scrambled out of bed, her bare feet sinking into a plush wool rug. She needed to leave. Now. Before Leo woke up. Before the police came. Before Dante decided she was a loose end. She found the door and pushed it open. She stepped out into the main living area of the penthouse. It was an architectural marvel, a floating staircase, a fireplace large enough to roast an ox, and art on the walls that looked like original Basquiat's. In the open-concept kitchen, Dante Moretti was standing by a massive marble island. He had showered. He was wearing dark jeans and a black turtleneck that accentuated the width of his shoulders. He looked less like a mob boss and more like a tech billionaire, except for the holster resting on the counter next to a bowl of lemons. He was cooking. "You're awake," he said without turning around. He flipped an omelette in a copper pan. "How is the hangover?" "I didn't drink," Bella said, staying near the hallway, gripping the doorframe. "Adrenaline hangover," Dante corrected. "It's worse than tequila. Sit." "I want to go home," Bella said, her voice trembling but firm. "I did what you asked. Leo is alive. You said you'd let me go." Dante turned off the stove. He plated the omelette, fluffy, golden, garnished with chives, and slid it across the marble island. He placed a steaming cup of espresso next to it. I said I would get you into the car, or the police would find you, Dante said calmly. I never said you could go home immediately. Is this a hostage situation? This is breakfast, Dante said. Eat. You're hypoallergenic, right? You skipped lunch yesterday. I checked your personnel file. You tend to get lightheaded when your blood sugar drops. Bella stared at him. You went through my personnel file. I know everything about you, Bella. I know you graduated from Rush University. I know you send $400 a month to your mother in Ohio. I know you haven't dated anyone seriously in 2 years because you work 80 hours a week. He took a sip of his coffee, his dark eyes boring into hers. And I know you were fired yesterday by Richard Sterling. Bella's stomach growled, betraying her. She walked slowly to the island and sat on a high leather stool. She took a bite of the omelette. It was perfect. Of course it was. Why does it matter? Bella asked, chewing slowly. I saved your brother. We're even. We're not even, Dante said. He walked around the island, leaning against the counter so he was facing her. Because the bullet I pulled out of the wall behind Leo, it wasn't a stray shot. It was a hit. That's your business, not mine. It became your business when you walked into my car, Dante said. Do you know who ordered the hit? No, and I don't want to know. It was the Northern Alliance, a rival faction trying to move heroin through the port. Dante paused, watching her reaction. But they needed inside info to know where Leo would be. They needed a schedule, a location. Okay, Leo was at a private fundraising gala at the Art Institute last night. Only VIPs. The guest list was sealed. Dante leaned closer. Dr. Julian Callahan was there. Bella dropped her fork. It clattered against the china. Callahan? She whispered. The surgeon I corrected? The very same, Dante said. Dr. Callahan has a gambling debt. Massive. About $2 million owed to the Northern Alliance. Last night, he paid off a chunk of that debt. Not with money, but with information. He told them where Leo would be standing at 11 p.m. Bella felt the blood drain from her face. You think the doctor who got me fired set up your brother to be murdered? I don't think. I know, Dante said coldly. And here is the problem, Bella. Callahan knows you saw the mistake in the OR. He fired you to discredit you. But now you've disappeared. You vanished from the street into a convoy of SUVs that match my convoy. Dante pulled a tablet out and slid it toward her. It showed a grainy security camera feed from the street corner where she had been picked up. Callahan's handlers are watching the streets, Dante explained. They saw you get into my car. They know you're with me. So they think you're my asset now, Dante said. They think you're working for the Moretti family. If you go back to your apartment in Logan Square, you won't last an hour. They will grab you to get to me, or they will kill you to tie up the loose end regarding Callahan's malpractice. Bella stared at the screen. The image of her entering the Lamborghini was blurry, but undeniable. I can't go home, she realized, her voice barely a whisper. I'm homeless. No, Dante said. He stood up to his full height, casting a shadow over her. You are under my protection. You live here now. I am not living with a mobster. Bella stood up, her anger flaring again. I am a nurse. I save lives. I don't take them. I am walking out that door. I am going to the police, and I am telling them everything. Dante moved faster than she could blink. He was in front of her, his hand slamming against the counter to block her path. He didn't touch her, but he trapped her in his space. The police? Dante laughed, a dark, humorless sound. Who do you think Callahan called after he botched the surgery on Mr. Kowalski? He called Detective Miller, the same Detective Miller who would take your statement. He leaned down, his face inches from hers. She could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. There is no law for people like us, Bella. There is only survival. You are in the game now. You can be a pawn and die. Or you can be a queen and help me take the board." "I don't want to be a queen," Bella hissed, tears pricking her eyes. "I just want my life back." "That life is gone," Dante said, his voice softening, dropping to a rumble that vibrated in her chest. "Sterling took your career. Callahan took your safety. I am the only one offering you a future." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone, a brand new encrypted smartphone. "Leo is awake," Dante said. "He wants to thank you. Go check his vitals. Then we are going shopping." "Shopping?" Bella blinked, thrown off balance by the sudden shift. "You have no clothes, no toothbrush, and no weapons," Dante said, straightening his cuffs. "If you're going to be the personal physician to the Moretti crime family, you need to look the part. I didn't accept the job." Dante smirked. It was the first time she had seen him smile, and it transformed his face from terrifying to devastatingly attractive. "You will," he said, "because the salary is $500,000 a year. Cash. And the first bonus?" He paused, his eyes gleaming. "Is watching me destroy the man who fired you." Bella looked at the phone. She looked at the door. She looked at Dante. She thought of Sterling's smug face. She thought of Callahan's arrogance. She thought of her empty bank account. She took the phone. "First," she said, lifting her chin, "I need a shower, and I'm not wearing your shirts anymore." Dante's smile widened. "As you wish, Dottoressa." The Stanley Field Hall inside Chicago's Field Museum was a cavern of shadows and limestone, transformed for the night into a playground for the city's untouchables. High above, the fossilized skeleton of Maximo the Titanosaur stretched across the ceiling, casting a rib-caged shadow over the tuxedoed senators, tech moguls, and hospital board members below. The air smelled of chilled oysters, expensive perfume, and old money. Richard Sterling stood near the base of the dinosaur, swirling a glass of 25-year-old scotch. He looked like a man who had won a war he didn't even have to fight. His tuxedo was midnight blue, his cufflinks gold, and his smile practiced. Beside him, Dr. Gregory Callahan, formerly Julian, but he had legally changed it years ago to sound more patrician, a fact Sterling found amusingly desperate, looked less at ease. The surgeon was sweating, despite the hall's aggressive air conditioning. His eyes darted toward the towering bronze doors every time they opened to admit a new guest. "Stop fidgeting, Gregory," Sterling murmured, taking a slow sip of his drink. "You look like a man waiting for a subpoena. It's a charity gala, not an arraignment." "I have a bad feeling, Richard," Callahan whispered, wiping his upper lip with a cocktail napkin. "The girl, Jenkins. My contact at the precinct said the missing persons report was flagged and then deleted. Just scrubbed from the server, like she never existed," Sterling scoffed, a dry, dismissive sound. "She's a nurse, Gregory. A broke, fired nurse from the Midwest. She didn't disappear because of a conspiracy. She disappeared because she couldn't pay her rent. She's probably back in Ohio, working at a strip mall urgent care and telling anyone who will listen that she used to be somebody. But the car, forget the car. Witnesses are unreliable," Sterling snapped, his patience fraying. "Focus on tonight. The endowment committee is watching. If we secure the Moretti donation, the board approves the new surgical wing. That means your debt creates a surplus, and my bonus clears my mortgage. Smile." Callahan forced a grimace that looked painful. "I didn't know the Morettis were donors." "They aren't," Sterling said, das, adjusting his lapels. "But money washes money. Dante Moretti wants legitimacy. We sell him a plaque on a wall. He gives us clean cash. It's the Chicago way." At that moment, the string quartet stopped playing. It wasn't a gradual fade. It was a hard stop, as if the conductor had been physically silenced. The heavy hum of conversation in the vast hall died down, rippling from the entrance towards the center like a tide going out before a tsunami. The heavy bronze doors of the museum swung open with a theatrical groan. The rain outside had stopped, but the wind blew in, carrying the scent of ozone and wet pavement. Framed in the doorway, silhouetted against the city lights, stood two figures. Dante Moretti looked like the prince of a dark kingdom. He wore a tuxedo that defied the laws of off-the-rack fashion, cut from matte black silk that absorbed the light. He didn't walk, he stalked. But for once, the most dangerous man in Chicago was not the focal point. It was the woman on his arm, Bella Jenkins. She was unrecognizable from the shivering, soaked figure in scrubs from 2 weeks ago. She wore a gown of arterial red silk, the color of fresh, oxygenated blood. It was backless, holding to her skin as if by magic, pooling at her feet and slit high up the thigh. Her hair, usually pulled back in a messy, practical bun, was cascaded in polished waves over one shoulder. Around her neck sat a diamond choker that caught the ambient light and fractured it into 1,000 razor-sharp spectrums. But the transformation wasn't just aesthetic. It was in her posture. She held her chin high, her eyes scanning the room not with the deference of an employee, but with the assessment of a predator. "Is that—" Sterling squinted, his glass freezing halfway to his mouth. "Is that the Jenkins girl?" "It's her," Callahan choked out, his face draining of color. "Oh God, it's her!" Dante placed his hand on the small of Bella's back, a gesture of possession and support, and guided her into the room. The crowd, a collection of Chicago's most powerful egos, parted for them like the Red Sea. Whispers ignited like wildfires in dry grass. "Is that Dante Moretti?" "Who is she?" "Look at that."